Masterpiece of journalistic work. But my question directed to you particularly was because of the special place that you find yourself in seeking to moderate and ensure standards. The petition to the NMC, I can, safely say it's a rehash of the rejoinder or the response.
Yes.
They said, and let's watch this, we ought to be patriotic to this country, not so. They say that the attempt by Manasseh Awine and multimedia to portray the company as being engaged in the perpetration of acts seen in the first 6 minutes and 20 seconds of the documentary. He begins the documentary by bringing us library footage, Ayawa so and what happened, and so on and so forth. That is not what the group is seen to do, but he uses that and then to tell that story. So they say, or that they are doing this, or similar thereto, only exposes the mischief with which the documentary was laced, and does little credit to the reputation of a media house that prides itself as independent and guided by the ethics of the media profession. They say we bring the complaint because the substance of the story complained of is in various material essentials utterly false, a product of gross misrepresentation of facts, wild speculation by the producer of the documentary specified above, and same betrays a desperate attempt on the part of multimedia and Manasseh Awine to vilify the sincere efforts by the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to end the worrying phenomenon of political vigilantism in the country. I read this last portion. Indeed, the story has the effect of tarnishing the image of the country, dampening investor interest, causing disaffection for the President of the Republic, and undermining efforts at curbing vigilantism in Ghana. Can't you put this against the documentary and say they have a point?
Absolutely not. Let me start from their own petition and ask, why do they relate the work to vigilantism and the efforts that they describe? And I hope and I believe it is so, that the president is genuinely making towards ending political vigilantism. Look, I don't think that Kojo, who has this ministry that petitioned the National Media Commission and has ever worked as a presenter, or at least worked here in the same media organization that perhaps now he finds issues with.
He's doing his job, not in a personal capacity.
And I'm absolutely not surprised about it. I think that the work that Manasseh has done has had quite a significant collateral damage on the government and the president, the party, and certainly given the role assigned them, they ought to do what they are doing. I don't think that they are suggesting that journalistically, when you are doing a story or producing a documentary, you shouldn't put it in context. And for me, the first 6 minutes, 20 seconds that they are talking about as referencing the events at Ayawaso, West Wuogon, was essentially to position the documentary in a context. And talking about political vigilantism and so on and so forth, why are we all worried? We are all worried because this is a phenomenon that poses a significant threat to our democracy, the stability of our country, and the future generally of this country. And so to say that because the documentary starts with the scenes that we all saw at Ayawaso, West Wuogon, which eventually, well, we are waiting for the commission's report, but based on what we heard and all that.
1 second. Please, 1 second. Boko Haram started as a religious education activist group. Today, they are affiliated with ISIS.
Yes.
He just told us what the end could be, and he was right.
He told us the end, or he told us
what the end could be. He put it in context.
Okay, let me get
Boko Haram
and then get
was an education unit.
Something
Today they are in ISIS.
Lead us out.
Something briefly.
Yes.
I think in the course of it, then they say, well, the story is full of falsehood, fabrications, and so on and so forth. And when I read it, when the petition was filed, and I happened to read contents of it online, I decided, well, perhaps let's look into the documentary again. Now, is it true that there was a group that was operating and based at the castle? Yes, it's true. Is it true that this group is led by somebody who used to be the personal bodyguard of the president? Yes, that is true. Is it true that the group, once provided a service at an event that had all these high-profile people there? Yes, it is true. Is it true that the group by itself, in previous conversations, had said they are a group, just as we call the Azoka boys, the Hawks, and so on, if you don't want to use the word militia, they agree that they are a vigilante group. Is it true? That
was a report by the Daily Guide. We do not know that they challenged it. It doesn't mean that they agree.
And a statement made by
the leader
on television. And this is audio.
That they were to protect
visual.
MPP members.
Exactly. So is it true?
Protecting MPP members, does that make them vigilante?
No, hold on.
Okay.
Is it true that it is a group that acknowledges that it is aligned with the ruling party? Yes, that is true. So if you look at all the issues that were raised and contained in the documentary, I am at pains to find which issues were falsehood. They talk about the castle not being a security zone or whatever. Look, 3 or so ministers of state at the office of the... Okay, 4 of them. Ministers of state at the office of the president works from this facility. Now, because of the denial, we all had, a ranking member of the Defense and Interior Committee talk about us at that time, and this is just this week, what was happening at the Osu Castle. The joint exercise between the U.S. security forces and some Ghanaian security forces and other security forces from neighboring countries operating from within the castle, which ordinarily would have been a privileged information. And then this person says, well, because of the denial, I am forced to put this out.
Okay.
So if you then say the castle is not,
and Kweku, you do a documentary and you make emphatic statements of facts from your point of view, and then there are official sources that come to say, you say it's a military installation. It is not. It is a museum. Should we take the official source, or we should take what you want us to believe? There is the military, the Ghana Armed Forces, that is said to have been involved in locking up the place after the documentary. They come out, issue a statement, and they say, we're never involved in any such exercise.
No, but Samson, I think it's important that you limit it to the documentary and not stories that were done after the documentary.
No,
because we are talking about the credibility
it is important.
Of the documentary.
Yes. Let's hear Kweku.
Look, specific rebuttals to specific aspects of an investigative documentary or any investigative project cannot and must not take away the substance of that investigative project. We have to stay focused. Admittedly, you can give a listening ear to those rebuttals and do an assessment of them on their own merit. And some of those rebuttals may have merit. But to overrate those rebuttals and the merit they have in order to deny the substance of a project is trying to choose my words. I want to be big charitable. Might be dishonest. I'm not too sure.
That's the softest word.
I was looking for.
Doc is asking if that is charitable.
Because I couldn't find a way. I'm sorry. Maybe if you can find me a more liberal, moderate one, disingenuous. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that. You see, let me be honest with you. In terms of documentaries, and it's global. After you've done the raw investigative project, unless it is exclusively meant for security or investigative agencies to deal with, if you decide to do a documentary for public viewing, there are certain illustrations that are brought to bear on the thing without necessarily them being reflective of the reality.
Context.
It happens every day. So, for me, yes, I saw that masked person. I saw the website, all those things. It didn't change my view that there's something very serious out there that ought to be interrogated. For instance, let's take the specifics. Oh, it's a castle is a security zone. No longer a security zone. It's now part of the museums and monuments. That's true. That's factual. The security assessment or stature or status of castle has been downgraded. That's a fact. The fact that there are ministries there is immaterial. But the truth of the matter is that it essentially remains a state facility that ought not to have been appropriated by any private group for any business.
The gardens, not the...
It's part of the installation.
Yeah, they had an office, but we have an explanation to why the guy had an office.
The gardens are on the beach, the sea. That's where the gardens are. Where are the gardens?
But we are told it's available to any member of the public. If you want to have a function there, you can
this
go
group
for it.
were stationary there and doing some business there, relative to even their own website address.
Yeah.
You see, so whilst you would want to make a point that's rebutted, that is no longer a security zone, perhaps it's been downgraded considerably. That's a fact. And I don't see why any journalist I would want to challenge that. Because really, take that away, the problem remains. It's a state facility. Ought not to have been utilized by a private group of that nature and was given the chance to do so. I think the government concedes that that was an error.
They should have, yeah.
But it's an error that cannot be underestimated.
And in fact, when they were to be cleared, it took a combined team of police and national security personnel to get
And
them
even
out.
if you watch the video itself, you see that the group had been having running battles. They had been having running battles with national security. Something that some of us were aware. Okay, in terms of their presence and operations in that facility. So, why waste time? I'm okay, you're going to National Media Commission, that's fine. That's a civilized, decent forum for a government to adopt. And that's what we should be encouraging. The group has gone to court. Again, I'm unable to challenge them. That's also civilized and decent approach.
Right.
Yeah, so we tackle those issues in those established. Because of even these two issues, I'm constrained in giving a full judgment or view on the issues. But something ought not to be hidden. The group had no business, earthly business, operating in a state facility. Then again, they've advertised their objects. Those objects come within a legal regime. If indeed those objects that they advertise, they operationalize them, if they did, because you see, when it comes to the fact that they put it there is immaterial, we must find evidence to the effect that they did engage in those activities. You are the lawyers. If there's going to be prosecution will be looking for that material evidence. If they indeed engaged in them, then the law must be activated for them to answer some few questions. So for me, the bottom line is in the Manasseh thing, the contest, and I'm totally with the contest. See, the militia, vigilantes, what are they?
Militia in the heart of the nation.
Yes, I have a problem with Professor Mensah-Bonsu's description. I did, from day one. See, these groups, there's been violence here and there. Kumasi, somebody was killed. NPP earlier in their headquarters and others, there were violence. Delta Force invaded a court. They went to the regional coordinating secretariat to remove the coordinating. These are all acts of violence of varying degrees. But I can tell you something. They have not yet reached even the point of the action troopers and action groupers. who were correctly described by Dennis Austin as paramilitary groups.
They're on their way.
Let me just refer to you, if you the struggle for power, 1954-56, this is by Dennis Austin, when he was talking about a paramilitary group, paramilitary organization of action groupers. That's the one for the NLM. They were then armed with cudgels, guns, and soda water bottles. Now he gives you some details, and let me read the details.
Go ahead.
It was not difficult to come by guns of the sort used by farmers for hunting in the bush. A soda water bottle, shaken violently and then held at the adversary, is a very nasty weapon. It had a further advantage that it could be made to appear innocuous. Thus, the usual defense offered by the action grouper, that's the NLM, or the action trooper, the CPP, if brought to court, was that the soda water bottles were for refreshment. You see, if you shook it, you shook it hard and threw it into the crowd, it blast and the bottles, like arrows, will spread. Indeed, the truth of the matter is that what we have today are not on the same level as the violence, the violence that they perpetrated. Look, we have party militants, party fanatics, party volunteers, party foot soldiers. They all misbehave. Party militia, the concept of militia, I don't see it today. We've had militias formed before in this country under the PNDC. We had the People's Militia, the Civil Defense Organization. They were armed, given few weeks training and armed. Last week, Isankuma was talking about one at Decorah.
Yes.
Go and check that record properly. When the incidents happened, there were attempts to actually give him clemency by the government prior to court. Post that, he went to court. High Court in Bolgatanga jailed him. He appealed here. I have assessed the court ruling, and he lost. But within 3 years, he was given amnesty and incorporated into the party. We have had militias in this country. Under this constitution, gradually, most of them phased out. Some were integrated in national security and other agencies like SEPS and the rest. They were integrated. The commandos are a special breed. They were not militias as such. They were regular soldiers, but trained in a specialized way, like the Nkrumah's Presidential Old Guard Regiment.
Okay.
So I think that sometimes the concept too is very important, the conceptualization. Because if the description is wrong, if you are not careful, your solution will be wrong-headed. So I don't agree.
Right. So Kuku, on the basis of this exposition you have made, which there are many who find reasonable because they don't agree with Professor Mensah Bonsu's position or what is likely to become the Commission's position. Is it not the case that as a media house or a journalist, it is possible to make a concession and say, on the basis of this, I make a concession and I say on one or two of the counts that you raise against me, I'm sorry.
No, you know what? It's like killing an ant with a sledgehammer. You're asking too much of a journalist. I understood exactly what Manasseh was doing. He picked a cue from Professor Mensah Bonsu.
Exactly.
Look, this is a commission of inquiry set up by the president. And the narrative was changed from vigilantes to militia by a member, and indeed, I salute her. I think she's a great woman. I've always admired her anyway. Right. It's not because of the commission. Okay. But she's great mind, solid mind. And she pushed it. Said this is warlordism and warlords and militia. The journalist, the narrative changed. So Manasseh fed into it. I don't think it's a substantive error. My view, to be honest with you, why waste time on that? Why don't you go for the substance of the documentary? Okay, so just a few pointers,
and as a senior journalist, clear those for him before I come to Prof. Dr. Akwete. They say that Joy gave a promo, and when we were doing a promotion, they use, library, footage, as in pictures.
Yes.
They went to BBC,
yes,
using some pictures from Nigeria's Boko Haram or so, and they use that to say that this is what you should expect when you watch the documentary. Government takes exception to that.
See, government can make the point. That's why I said specific.
They say that's misleading.
And so what? That's a big
Is that
deal.
Allowed as a senior journalist? Is that allowed?
You see, I'm not a hypocrite, even though some people think I am. I sit here and make such a statement. Anas Aremeyao Anas. That's a lot of documentaries. Some went to court. You better check the cocoa smuggling case in court.
Yeah.
The raw footage and the documentary were both in evidence. The judge decided to concentrate or pass judgment on basis of the raw footage. And he explained why the documentary had been put aside. Because in the documentary, you see all sorts of illustrations that really weren't part of the investigative project.
Okay.
For instance, there were places where you see street lights. Now, where the bush where he went to do the thing, there were no street lights there. You see tipper trucks with cocoa loaded going to the port. It was to illustrate that this thing we do, we grow cocoa for export and to bring us revenue. But he put all that as part of the initial things to let people understand the history of cocoa production and export.
Okay.
But in the raw footage, there's none of that. That is pure, straightforward secret forming of those people in the action. So the judge drew an extension. If I were government, that's why I said, well, it's fair they've gone to media commission. That's okay. Perhaps it will help all of us.
Right.
The next time when we are doing documentaries, we may be a bit more circumspect and how we go about it.
Okay.
But I do not think we should aggregate those perceived discrepancies, if you like, aggregate them in a judgment form to negative the
Okay.
the
So the
substance.
last question for you, and there are many journalists who are listening to this and watching this program. Once again, one thing they take issue with is that he speaks of a question he posed to the Director of Communications at the Office of the President, Eugene Ahim. And the answer he gets is that the president or the presidency is completely unaware of any such group operating in the castle or the castle gardens. The essential question they have asked is, for example, they say the documentary shows an answer to a question asked of the Director of Communications at the Office of the President, Mr. Eugene Ahim. The producer mischievously does not show the question asked, Mr. Eugene Ahim, but shows only the supposed answer. One is left in no position to tell the specific question Mr. Ahim was answering. And my good friend Paul Admochiri also takes this and says that it is wrong in journalism because you must tell the question and then tell us the answer.
Well,
So we know you asked the right question before you got
it's
the
a
answer.
legitimate inquiry to mount. You know me, I hardly do peer review.
Right.
Because there's an element of hypocrisy and double standards
Okay.
there. What I'm going to talk about, perhaps I'm even more guilty of those transgressions than the person you are reviewing. And I've had that standard position of not doing that.
Okay.
But see, fortunately, they are going to media commission. So we'll see which question was asked but not posted in the video.
Okay.
But to be honest with you, I'm finding it difficult to say something. But you see, to be honest with you,
Because if you ask the question, is the presidency or the president aware of a militia group?
yes,
They can answer in the negative.
yes,
Because they are aware of a job recruitment agency.
Yes.
And not a militia group.
yes. So that's why I say it's a legitimate inquiry to mount. But really, I don't see why that question, missing from the documentary, takes away the substance of the documentary. Unfortunately, because this is a democracy, and because we have the mechanisms to cure whatever mischief we perceive, they've gone to the media commission. That question could come out.
Okay.
Or even if I were Manasseh and the producer, realizing that these are questions people are asking, I've seen that question posed on social media.
Yes.
Okay.
Not just by government. I would have put the answer, the question out there already. Because really, materially, it will not cause any fatal injury
Okay, Koko,
to the integrity
before I
of
move to Professor Akwete, and you also